It's a new day in the shop, and today the J10's pulled in here. I've had parts sitting on the shelf for this thing for a really long time now, since before I had the shop here. So it's about time that this thing comes in and gets some loving. The first thing that I'm addressing, as you can kind of see right there, we've got a pretty good fuel leak going. So I've got some fuel lines on the way. I've got a new gas tank in the bed, a plastic one, so that doesn't rust out like this one has. I'm going to do all the filler neck hoses and pretty much everything in the fuel system from the tank all the way up to the pump. And then from the pump to the carburetor is already new. So I'm going to get that taken care of. I've got brake parts that have been sitting on the shelf for a while because this thing needs brakes pretty bad. So I've got pads. I don't think I did calipers, but I have rotors, brake lines, a rear drum brake rebuild kit. I've got new hub bearings and everything in the front since you got to take the hubs apart to get the rotors off. I'm going to do all new wheel studs, all new lug nuts. And then lastly, I need to get the exhaust figured out because it has a really bad header leak, so it's just ear-splitting loud. So if I can get all that figured out, this thing will be pretty solid for a little while. So like I said, first I'm digging into this fuel leak. I'll take you underneath and show you what's going on there, and then I'll jump right into it. Alright, so I parked this thing here yesterday, and you can already see how much fuel is in these containers. This third one is just kind of residual dripping off the frame, but these two right here collected quite a bit, plus what's all over the floor from before I noticed that it was leaking. And a little bit right there that was dripping out of the tank itself, because the tank has a little hole in the bottom of it now. But if we roll up underneath here, you can see pretty clearly where it's leaking from. But all these hard lines are pretty junky on this truck, just from sitting for a long time. It looks like somebody's already replaced them before, because this seems like it would have been the fuel line because it runs along the exact same path. Kind of goes the same way up this way. So it looks like somebody did that before and it's already leaking again. So I'm going to do my own brake lines, and I've got fuel line. I've got a fuel line flaring kit so I can make the lines and everything, so that the rubber hose will actually fit up where they're supposed to. I'm not too worried about that. And then of course the brake lines, while the tank is out, I'm going to do brake lines, because you can see this one down here, the brake line goes up and back behind the fuel tank. So that'll be nice with this out of the way to go ahead and do brake lines. And like I said, this tank has a little hole in it that's been leaking, as well as just big holes in the top up there. And the filler neck stuff just is not correct. Somebody just jammed some hoses in here. So it'll be nice to get this all sorted out with my new friends. Alright, I got the old gas tank out. Comparing it to the new one, looks like they're about the same size and shape, which is pretty good. The filler neck is about the same spot. This one has a metal breather that goes off this direction, whereas this one just has a place to clamp a hose. So that's going to be actually much nicer. But this one has this vent back here of some sort. That one does not. That's a little bit annoying. This sending unit, I am definitely not using. I have a new one that's going to be here in a couple hours. So I'll put a new sending unit into this tank. But this one was clearly not working very good. For one thing, the gas gauge didn't ever work, but the parts that are supposed to not be loose are loose. That just kind of pulls up in and out of there. And the zip ties are great hose clamps. This one was loose, this hose clamp. I did not even loosen it or tighten it or put it on there or anything. It was just on there loose. I just cut this hose because I wasn't planning on using it. But I'm excited to get this pulled apart, get the sending unit out, just to look down in this tank and see how bad it actually was. And then obviously this was working fantastic. It had a hose clamp on this side, and as you can see, was basically falling off. And there's no lip on this, which is, I guess, really old, but that's weird. But this split has been there like that the entire time we've owned this truck, which is why it leaked gas out of it if you tried filling it up. I just never did anything about it because I knew this fuel tank swap was coming. So I'm going to get this thing, this sending unit, out of here as best I can. I'm not going to try cleaning off the dirt and everything first. I'm just going to hammer that thing out. And there is some gas still in here, but I don't imagine it's any good because we had to fill this thing up every time we ran it. So yeah, let's look up inside of there. Oh, and one other thing. I got these fuel tank straps. So I got the fuel tank from BJ's, and BJ's Off-Road, and I got the straps from the same place. But it doesn't look like they're even close. And I thought maybe you'd have to bend it up at one side to make it fit. I ordered 2 of them. Maybe they... And then I thought maybe they went together like this somehow. Like you could screw them together because they've got the holes, but they're not symmetrical. So those just don't work. So I'm going to have to figure out how to return those. And the sending unit from BJ's, they said was booked out or on back order, that's the words, for like months. Or they said they didn't know, but they said it could be a while. And then I found one with the same part number on Amazon that I ordered, and it's going to be here today. So hopefully it's the same one so I can cancel the sending unit that I don't have yet and then get these returned. But at least the tank seems like it's going to work. I don't know what I'm going to be able to do with that vent that's over there, but I can deal with that a lot easier than I can deal with having to cut these up and weld them together some way. Because, I mean, this strap is structurally fine. It's got stuff all over it because the gas tank's been leaking. But it's solid, and it just unbolted super nice, which is surprising. So I got the siphon running here. The gas coming out of this is actually surprisingly clean. So I don't know if you can see that it's running. Let me underneath it. You can see the bubbles going through right there. It's actually siphoning out. It looks really nice. So right into the gas can. A whole lot better than what came out of the fuel lines. That stuff is nasty. Yeah, that probably wasn't working for the fuel level. The potentiometer is all unwrapping. Well, and it's supposed to be mounted, looks like up underneath into here. Let's see if we can't. And something tells me there's supposed to be something attached to that on the bottom. I don't know if you can hear that. The float's full of gas, so it wasn't even floating anyways. So this whole contraption is gonna go right into here gently, so that when the new one gets here, I can compare it. Let's see if we can't see anything in here. It's fairly dirty. It's kind of what I was expecting. Of course, some of that's going to be from me taking it apart right now, but it's kind of what I expected. That's why, even though I'm actually surprised this doesn't have any holes rusted into it anywhere, it actually looks like it could be cleaned up and used again. So I may say if somebody on Facebook just wants this thing, but that tank is not going to rust, and it's not going to get all that junk and stuff in the bottom of it once it's all sealed up. So I am very excited to have the plastic tank. All right, while the fuel tank is out, I'm going ahead and running new brake lines. For one, it needs them anyways. You can see, maybe, there, it's pretty well swollen and stopped up. But also, they're just not in great shape overall. But I wanted to show you things like this. If you don't have a set of these brake line vice grips, honestly 2 sets of these, you'll never be able to get stuff like this without cutting it. But these, you can see right there, got it right off. I'm going to need 2 hands to get it all the way out, but there is 0 chance even a line wrench was going to get that. So again, just if you ever do any old car stuff and even breathe near brake lines, you need a set of these. Just like that, we've got a new sending unit. And if you look up in here, the potentiometer is actually attached. Plus, this one has a ground strap on it, which I really like. It's not just counting on the gas tank to ground it out to the chassis, but if you look at this compared to the old one, it's pretty well the same. So we're going to use it. So if we stick that into there, just make sure these are pointed the direction we want them to be. Let's see here. Like that, I think, is what I want. And put this back over it. And then I'll put all these clamps back on, and that'll be pretty well good to go. And then I'll just have to run a self-tapper, or I'll see if one of the straps that holds the brake lines onto the frame is close enough to this thing where I can just tag onto one of them, but we'll see. Alright, so I've got the factory fuel lines right here, these hard lines, and I've been cleaning them off with the wire wheel and everything, and you can see pretty clearly, if I can hold this thing, that's where our leak is coming from. So I'm going to cut this back about here and re-flare this end so that I can get another hose on there, and then I don't have to replace these whole entire lines. I can just make a repair right there and put a longer fuel line on it. So I think that's what I'm going to pick up tomorrow on the fuel system. And otherwise, the rear brake lines are pretty well done. I just have to, I'm waiting on the new brake shoes before I tear into the drums, just so I don't lose track of which way the springs go. And then once I tear the drums apart, I'll put the new studs in, and we'll put the fuel lines in before we tuck the tank back up in there. So pretty happy with progress for today, but I got other stuff to do, so I'll see y'all tomorrow. Alright, it's the next day in the shop, and we are ready to get all of this done and rebuilt now that all the parts are here. So I've got my shoes, my drums, the regular hardware, the parking brake hardware, new lug nuts, new wheel studs, new wheel cylinder. The new brake lines are already in here from yesterday, and they are ready to be installed. So now all I got to do is start tearing all this apart. And I don't like to tear it apart until I have all the pieces to put it back together, just so you can kind of keep track, because every drum brake is a little bit different on the combination of springs and adjusters and everything. Like, for example, the spring right here is uncommon on the stuff that I work on. I know it's common on a lot of things, but I don't normally see that on the drums that I do. So it's good to keep it all together until you can put it back together. Taking pictures is a good idea too, if you need to do that. So, but I think first I'm going to try to pound out these wheel studs because I'm replacing every single one of them. All new wheel studs, all new lug nuts for the whole truck. These things are pretty junky and nasty, and some of them are missing little pieces off the ends of them. And some of them are just plain broke, so I'm going to go ahead and get started doing all that. And then once this is wrapped up, I'll get the fuel lines back in there. I'll repair this wire for the sending unit. As you can see there, it's split and the wires are hanging out of it. And then once all of that is done, we can put the tank back in here. Well, that's going to be all on the J10 for now. The rear brakes are working super good. I'm really happy about that. It's holding fuel, which is amazing. The sending unit still doesn't work because of probably some dash wiring issues. There's a lot of stuff I still need to look into on this thing, but overall super happy for now. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe and stay tuned for when we get back on this thing and a lot of the other projects we have sitting around.